under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll move on to the superintendent's report. Mr. Brooks.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you to our Honor Society folks looking for some blood drive sign-ups. Hope you get a lot of them. Architects have blood, I believe, too, so that's good.
Yeah.
Next week, we have a special visit. Senator Skoufis is going to be touring all 3 of our schools. I believe it's on the 13th, correct, Teresa? 18th, I'm sorry, the following week, the 18th. So really looking forward to giving him an opportunity to see what our facilities are like. It'll be his first time in our buildings and kind of get a glimpse into what our Vision 2020 project's going to look like also. So I know our principals are gearing up for about a half an hour in each building to kind of wander and highlight some of our wonderful programs. So very much so looking forward to that. And my last pieces, I'm looking forward to tonight's presentation for a full update to the Board of Education and recorded for our community on our Vision 2020 project. So with that, I'm done.
Okay. We do not have a Ulster BOCES report because if I remember correctly, the meeting is next Thursday. It is. So we'll move on to the OU BOCES. Karen, do we have anything?
I wasn't able to attend.
Okay.
My daughter's holiday concert was last night.
That's more important.
Yep, so that's where I was at. But I would have loved to have seen the video. I don't know if anybody saw it. I don't know if anybody went.
Well, the concert was wonderful.
Yes, that was. It was excellent.
When you can't go, let me know.
And the student representative is out sick today. So we're going to move right on to CS Arch
When you don't
presentation
just let me know.
on our Vision 2020 project.
I'm that up or Joseph.
And for the board members, if you want to follow along closely, the PowerPoint was uploaded to Board Docs.
I know that they did. But what happens is your representative will come into the meeting and she said you can come.
All right.
I gotta get into Board Docs.
You're live, sir.
Hello, board members. Good evening. My name is Matthew Zurkowski. I'm the project manager with CS Arch. We are the architect of record for the 2019 capital project here in Marlborough. And I just wanted to walk the board through updates since we gave a presentation, I believe, back in February. So we had a full summer and fall and winter of work. I just want to walk the board through all of those updates.
Matt, why don't we just take a quick moment, if you could, and ask each of the team members to introduce themselves and their role, because a lot of work's been done by them, and you might as well give them a chance to get some credit, and the board to know who's been working on their behalf, including our construction manager, too. So.
Excellent. So for our civil engineer with the Chazen companies, we have George Kronk and Jeff Liebowitz. With our construction manager, Jacobs, we have David Latour. And then helping me out from CS Arch, we have Dion Miller and Nicholas Scalise. I think that's the team that's here tonight. We're architect of record. We're working with Chazen, the Chazen companies, for all of our civil engineering, land surveying, geotechnical. They're heading up the track work at the high school, as well as all of the site work that you'll see for the middle school. So the quick overarching sort of agenda that I had this evening was to give a summary from February of this year up until present date, and that includes the extensive field work that was conducted by the design team over the summer, as well as an exhaustive design coordination session review with all of the administration for all 3 schools, Marlborough Elementary, middle, and high schools. And we will be sharing some renderings from this, from the last several months of work, as well as the extensive site plan that has been developed for the middle school. At the high school, we have some interior renderings to share. Some of them have been altered a little slightly due to a lot of the field work that was conducted over the summer. Again, also with the elementary school, the exterior work, so the playscapes and some of the interior renovation work that we have planned over the next, well, construction is slated to start sometime in the May, June of next year and run for approximately about 15 months. And then we'll get into the overview, the project timeline, and then tying into the coordination effort that's been started for our energy performance contract. We have an EPC vendor on board, and the coordination effort that is going on between them, Siemens, and CS Arch. So as I had mentioned, over the summer, the design team, the engineers of record, were walking through all 3 facilities over the summer, and thank you again to Larry Cavazza and his staff for letting us get into every space imaginable in these buildings. And one of the items that we needed was to dimension all rooms, windows, exit paths, fire extinguishers, and the like. And then over the summer, we had put out RFPs for land surveying, geotechnical, and environmental consulting. So the Chazen companies ended up with the land surveying and the geotechnical work. All has been completed, and those findings are being rolled into the documents that are heading up to the State Education Department in 2.5 weeks from today. And lastly, environmental. We had our consultant, Adelaide, coming in doing sampling work off hours on weekends. Again, thank you to Larry and his crew for giving us off-hour access. Those findings are also being rolled into the documents that are heading up to the State Education Department in 2.5 weeks' time. As I had mentioned earlier, the design coordination sessions, our design team sat down with all the departments. So whether it be Ryan or Deborah or Patricia, the principals for the schools, their staff, whether it be theater, arts, athletics, science, it was an exhaustive undertaking. We thoroughly enjoyed those sessions because we learned a lot about what is working, what isn't working, and with an eye toward maximum flexibility of all these spaces. We don't want to construct a room that can only be used for one thing. We would like to have that flexibility in a lot of our spaces. So we fielded a lot of comments and concerns, mainly around space constraints, storage, accessibility, and flexibility. And we feel moving forward, we have a set of documents that is going to be best tailored for the needs of the district. And we had always had this focus on the 3 A's. So we're talking academics, arts, and athletics. So, and there will be a slide, the next slide breaks down those 3 criteria or those 3 aspects. Across the 3 schools, athletics, arts, and academics, you will see those in the revised plans. In the renderings, we feel as though having those 3 aspects as a firm base to work off of and meet with the administration only helped the process. And lastly, from a budgeting and estimating point of view, we are wrapping up our drawings for the State Education Department with one eye on commencement of construction. And one of the questions that we're hearing a lot about is the phasing of all of this work. As you can imagine, over 15 months, there will be swing spaces and there will be some maneuvering around of one department to some empty swing space, and that's where Jacobs, our construction manager, will come into play. And I would welcome David to come up and just speak to it very briefly. We don't need to belabor it, but he's the man with the plan.
So, as Matthew had indicated, we received 100% design development documents, so we understand the complete scope of work as it stands right now. As Matthew indicated, CSARC and their team has gone through the buildings. They've uncovered what they need to uncover. They've done some due diligence with respect to the existing structure, and we have a lot of openings. So I'm sure you've all seen the renderings, but what really needs to happen is a lot of those corridor walls are load-bearing. So there's an extensive amount of work to support the structure above. High school and the middle school are both two-story buildings, so without compromising the structure, we need to make a lot of movements on the inside of the building. So we've got our first draft of our phasing plan together. Larry and Jim Lovato of my office are meeting tomorrow to go over that first draft. Then we're thinking about next week and the following week to go through the draft phasing plans with the administration. This is going to require a lot of close coordination, but Mr. Brooks has been leading the effort on making sure that everybody's on the team, everybody's all in with the buy-in, and thus far with our current the meetings that we've had over the summer with the staff and the administration, everybody's excited about the program, everybody's all in. So we really anticipate, with close coordination with the building, we're going to be able to work mostly at night during the school year and then really hit it hard in the summertime. The middle school addition, for the most part, will take the entire duration of the bond program, and the ribbon cutting for that would be in 2021. So with that, we're also started our estimate. Our estimates should come in at the end of this week, at the end of next week, for the 100% design development drawings. We're going to sit with CSARC. We're going to reconcile against the budget. We're going to identify those items where we might be high, where we might be low, and then figure out how to reconcile against the budget and what we need to do with the design. As you know, we're on a really tight schedule. We want to make sure we get over to SED when we want to meet the mark, so that's about 2.5 weeks. Is aggressive, but we're all in. We want to make sure that we're out to bid no later than February. Running concurrently with this, we're also coordinating with Nautilus, who is performing your PLA study. The estimate is key to that study, so we're going to be transmitting that estimate to them next week. So.
I had mentioned earlier the 3 A's, academics, arts, and athletics. So across each of the schools, we have various levels of those 3 aspects. So regarding academics, regarding the middle school, we have student support services, and at the high school, again, the student support services, the STEAM lab, the robotics lab is going to be cutting edge. The robotics lab being on the 2nd floor, our STEAM lab, our tech lab of sorts on the ground floor. And the student support services in both schools, what we're trying to do in both situations is open up these corridors and create a more inviting space. As you can imagine, if you've gone down the corridors for both the middle school and the high school, there's a lot of wall. There's not a lot of vision and glass into a lot of these spaces. And by opening these up, we're hoping it is more inviting. Larger openings, a lot of glass. There's a lot of interaction from those in the corridor into the student support services spaces. The art, from an arts point of view, the middle school getting the music room, the auditorium, which can be used for both choral and band programs. We have high school art programs, the graphics lab, music support and theater support is being all renovated. A lot of new equipment, instrument storage, practice rooms, acoustically treated practice rooms for both schools. And then from an athletics point of view, we have the high school locker room and fitness center, which we just met on earlier today, to go over a layout that serves both the athletics, but also from a general PE point of view. having that space inviting for the entire student body, as well as the upgrades to the middle school gymnasium and locker rooms there. And then at the elementary school, we're resurfacing the exterior playscapes. There's 3 of those. Right now, I believe they're sort of wood chipped, and they're not the most inviting on kneecaps. So we're hoping to have a renewed focus in these 3 A's for all 3 structures. And I just wanted to delve into the key design elements for all 3 schools very quickly. So we started with the middle school being the most intensive of the 3. The highest level of work and renovation and new construction is at the middle school. So what we're indicating here on this slide, we are creating our new auditorium, our new choral band multi-purpose space. As David had mentioned, the construction for that will run the duration of capital project. And this will include risers for the choral department. We are providing acoustically treated practice rooms. We are renovating student support services, the main office, the music room. There's an entire innovation section where we're talking about tech lab, graphics lab, and innovation lab. And meeting with the administration for all of those spaces has been eye-opening, to say the least, as well as locker rooms and a completely renovated nurses suite. We're doing upgrades to the stage rigging and the gymnasium finishes. All of these spaces, again, are receiving new lighting, new ceilings. There's a pretty good upgrade of even the areas that we're not completely renovating, such as the gymnasium. It's staying where it is, but it's getting new finishes and upgrades, as we had discussed back in February. As well as the dining hall, there's new kitchen equipment, there's new servery queue lines, security grills, and the like. New toileting, yes. So toileting has been a concern at the middle school, and what we're doing as part of this project is providing at least a code minimum requirement for all water closets, urinals, and lavatories. And here in the renderings, what we're showing is a snapshot of the new main office rendering. So what we're providing here is, as part of our new secured entry vestibule, so visitors will come through the exterior doors. They will have direct view into the main office. We will have a greeter station there, and what we're doing is we're providing a secured vestibule with some security features in it. Again, the connectivity between visitors and the administration, it will be upgraded. Right now, the main entrance is through a greeter station through the stairwell. You're at a half landing. We want all visitors and students to be welcomed immediately upon entry. The big piece of the project, though, is the new addition. So the auditorium is focusing on the choral and band programs. We have 2 programs utilizing the same space. So both of them could use, what we're trying to get at is, we don't need to remove all of one program for the other program to use the same space. So as you can see from the rendering, there are 2 different orientations. If all the furnishings stayed in place, band could use it. If choral isn't, and vice versa. And from the district's point of view, if there were to be science fairs or PTO meetings or something of the like, the room can be completely cleared out, and it's one large multi-purpose space. So the flexibility is there. As we've learned from the music and arts department, acoustics are a big issue. So the space would be acoustically treated, as would the ancillary practice rooms, as would the existing and to-be renovated music room. So what we're showing here, we have engaged an acoustic consultant who is advising us on all necessary measures. Right now, it's with the Butler building, not only is space an issue, acoustics is an issue. So in the innovation zone, we have a full graphics lab and our technology lab. So again, in meeting with the administration, having maximum flexibility, having furnishings movable, having wireless connectivity, and trying to do away with the sort of old stodgy computer stations plugged in and having those run every which way is sort of a thing of the past. What we learned through our conversations with the staff for the tech lab, having workshop, wood shop equipment, having 3D printers, there's a myriad of program uses for these spaces, and what we're hoping to do between these two rooms as well as our innovation lab is to have a lot of glazing between the three spaces. So you could have occupants from innovation, graphics, and tech have a direct sight line from one room to the next to the next. We think that is going to be a great benefit to the users. As we found out, innovation and tech work hand in hand. So in between those two spaces, we have a graphics lab that both teachers or both programs will be utilizing hand in hand. So that's why we've located them right next to one another. And the image that you see here it's a little rudimentary, I will admit that. But what I was hoping that George Cronk with the Chasing Companies could do here is just give everybody sort of a summary as to the extensive site work that is going to be undertaken at the middle school. And this will include traffic pattern changes. We have parking as a premium, we understand that. So what you see here on the screen is a lot different than what you see out there now. And George could sort of give you the thinking between why we're going this particular direction.
Thank you. So the most significant changes that we've done on any of the site work is really at the middle school, and that's really why we're focusing on that in the presentation today. The middle school functionally has had some challenges over the years between the parking, the busing, and the student drop-offs. And we talked extensively about that before we came to a bond resolution, and that's certainly one of our main focuses from a safety point of view and purely just from an efficiency point of view to rebuild this area. So what you're actually looking at is the sketch plan for what we're planning to do on the site. And we're actually looking to add two entrances, or really three entrances in total, but there'll be two new entrances for the site. So the first set we're going to look at is the Birdsall entrance, and I unfortunately I didn't bring a pointer with me, but that's the on the screen that's up top. That's the portion that's over on the very left side of that rendering that's up there. And that's an expanded parking area. And the reason we're expanding the parking area over there is we're making some of the changes up top for the new addition, as well as better access in and around the school itself. So to accommodate and balance our parking on our site, we've added some parking down in the lower section along Birdsall. As you come around the corner, the buses will continue to enter the same location where they currently do. We're going to be making some modifications to that area, and that area is really just for the buses. It will allow for some delivery vehicles to go in there, but it is not intended in the future to be the access for student drop-off. So we're separating that function away from the bus drop-off. And we worked over several different models and several different sketches and with the construction committee, and really we've come to a really nice solution here that I think is going to work really well for the site. So the buses will come in, they'll still continue to come in 2 groups of 6. That's basically how it operates right now. So there's no real significant change for that piece. And the next change is if you look to the top of that sketch that's up there, that's actually going to be your entrance for your student drop-off, or your parents dropping off students. And the reason we're doing that is we want to make sure that the parent drop-off, which needs to be a very quick process, is separated from the buses. There's a legal component, a safety component, but it's also from an efficiency point of view, is it keeps your parents coming in, they drop off the students, and they can keep moving on. Whereas the buses will come in kind of in their batches and continue to drop off the students, very similar to what you have right now. So the new driveway that comes in around the side, the parents will come in off of Birdsall, they'll swing around, they'll drop off along the side of the school, and then they'll be able to exit down the driveway out the front onto Route 9 now. This has been designed and set up so that if the neighboring property ever is constructed to what's been proposed and approved from the town now, will integrate very nicely into this setup as well. So a lot of considerations were made for this. A lot of movements and changes have worked on the site as well. The other component that I want to bring up is the reddish area. That's the new building addition that's going in. And we've worked the design there so that your delivery vehicles can still get in and around and still drop off at for your cafeteria and your food services, which is obviously something you're using every day many times. Overall, it's going to look very different than what's out there right now. There'll certainly be some elevation changes, and that's what we're really focused on at this point is the visual value or aesthetics of the site and how we're going to integrate that back into your existing building and property. So it's not just from the architectural point of view, but also the site itself. One other component that's not really worked out on this sketch is if you're not familiar with the school and you haven't been through the process of either dropping off a student or coming to the school, it's very difficult to know where to go and where to come. So one of the components that will be worked out is exactly some hopefully very helpful signage that lays out, you know, as a visitor, you would come to this area and park in this area, and you would enter the building in a certain location through the new security vestibule. Or if you're a teacher, you're going to park, or a staff member, you're going to park in a certain area. And of course, the buses will have their own area with signage that will encourage, you know, non-buses to not enter that area. So that's a quick overview of the area. I think the key points is it's a far more efficient cycle for your busing and student drop-offs. We have been able to maintain, we actually have a slight, maybe 2 or 3 more parking spaces right now. And it will have a different look when it's done than what you have there right now.
So are we allowed to ask questions about the middle school before we go to the high school? Okay. I have a couple of questions. One. Is your microphone on? Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's on. Okay, so I have a couple of questions. One is, because I know I talked to Mike about the parking for Birdsall. So it will go on the bottom part of the street, up around on the bottom part of the field,
Well, yeah,
where the bump is?
Yeah, so
Right, so you'll come in that way to alleviate all the traffic off there, come up, and then go back down to the side where that house is, where the property that's for sale, and straight down to 9W. Correct?
So the way it's set up right now is you'll go down the existing driveway that goes down.
Correct.
If the property next door is ever completed and constructed, the agreement is that the traffic would go down that driveway to a lighted intersection.
But right now, 'cause right now we need to alleviate what we have, the problem that's there, because it's,
the whole
you know,
purpose of this new driveway is to take all that
Right,
traffic.
but this
off
is
of
something
Birdsall.
that I had talked to Mike about too, so this is kind of like,
Somehow they were able to dig in, their plan is to dig into the hill.
right,
not
that's what I
going-
had, it's right. Come in right over there, come up and around,
They're gonna
and
dig
then back
into the
down,
hill
which is perfect.
where the
Yeah.
parking lot is now.
Right.
And build a road, which is the road you see here for vehicles.
Right.
Not down where the football field
I,
is,
yeah, I
because it
wasn't,
eliminates
I
the
wasn't
football
going by the
field.
football
So,
field, I was trying to come
Yeah,
up
they were
front.
able to work that in there so that we can separate the buses and the cars. That really
Which
is a
I think
big
is a big
piece.
safety issue
Oh, yeah.
and a thing. So my other question is, with that, so the kids will not be going through the main office when they get dropped off?
Yes, they will.
Yeah.
No,
So
we
they
had-
have
we
to
had
walk through the
lengthy-
main office?
We had lengthy conversations at the last facilities committee meeting.
Well, I'm
They
not
will-
part of that.
Everybody, when they come in, you'll see there's a dash, like a dash sidewalk there in front of the buses. They're gonna come up and come through the main entrance. Everybody's coming through one entrance.
One of the design elements that is still being worked on as far as the detail on the outside is to show that there's an easy flow or a natural flow from buses or the cars that feeds you to the main entrance. So that's one of the challenges from the outside, that right now, except since we put the awning up, it's hard to know where the main entrance of the building is. So the designers are working on making a way, not only from pathways, but also aesthetics on the outside, that when you pull up to it, you know where the
You'll know
main
it's
entrance
right.
is.
Yep.
So,
And that's how it'll be used.
Yeah, because we've challenged them to try and come up with some sort of almost awning, portico system, like at the high school, at the main entrance, something like that,
That
where the
says
new
that-
main entrance
that you're
is gonna
here.
be.
so my other concern is the office having all glass around it. So will that be bulletproof glass, shatterproof glass? Because that is one of our, that's a big safety feature when you're saying that we have a lot of glass that we want to put in that building. And I'm concerned about, you never know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yep.
So my concern is the safety feature on that glass. Is it shatterproof? Is it bulletproof? Is
It will be,
bullet-resistant?
so to answer your question, it will be ballistic rated glass.
It will be what?
Ballistic rated glass, yes,
Okay.
yes. The
It's interesting too, because there's a couple of ways to look at that. Yes, thank you very much, definitely ballistic. Not having the glass, think about at the high school. Concrete wall, if you're in the main office, you actually can't see into the hall.
Correct.
That's a safety issue.
Right, both
So
ways.
by building in a glass structure, first of all, the middle school, we don't even know what it's gonna look like because, well, we do, but it's a whole different experience. But not having the visibility into hallways is a major safety issue from the main entrance perspective. So yes, we put in a lot of glazing, but it's ballistic.
Well, like I says, I'm just want to make sure it's safe.
Yeah, and we,
You know.
remember, some of those safety things, we're not gonna highlight in open
Correct, but I
conversation.
mean, it's something that, you know, you kind of like have to know too before, because what happens if we do put it up and it's just plain glass? I
Well,
mean, you know,
It's
it's a,
not.
you know, well,
it's not.
I just want to know the community's going to feel safe too.
Yes.
You're paying for it.
The one lamp that we were putting in, they're doing, wood shop 3D printing. They're doing wood shop 3D printing. Did you say anything about looking at laser cutting and manufacturing? I know that's big in a lot of the schools right now.
So in our conversation with namely the middle school and the high school staff, the idea of the installation of a future laser cutter has been discussed. So from the design team's point of view, what we'd want to do is provide enough ventilation in those spaces for the potential of the future maybe install of, say, a laser cutter and sort of the fumes that something like that would give off. For us, in the renovation process, to add that little component in while everything else is being removed is not an issue.
I have one more question.
Hold on, I think John had a question.
Yeah, oh, speaking of the flow, I follow you to where the buses come in and they're gonna drop off kind of in bulk, if you will, and then the vehicles, but it still looks like we have a choke point where you got written drop-off there. So how do you, I know you're still working on the flow, and this, as Frank said, there's a separate, maybe a separate document, but like is that gonna be handled by maybe timing of when the buses come and go versus when the parents can
Well-
drive through and drop off, or?
So,
I think that, you gotta remember, that's all, John, the big thing there is that's also the access through the campus. So
Right.
other than us restricting the bus area, that becomes the new main road, say, the regular vehicle access.
Right.
So that other access will be closed except for when we're doing buses. So there's no real choke point other than the fact that when the 6 buses are ready to pull out, the cars will stop as they pull out.
Okay, that's what I meant when I said done by timing, right? Yeah, okay, better words than that, yeah.
That was actually one of the main motivators to get the cars separated or the student drop-off separated from the buses so that we could keep the students dropped off and that cycle continues until we've exhausted all the drop-offs. And that was actually one of the things holding up your system the way it is right now is once those buses pull in, you're not to have cars driving behind them.
So that would necessitate, monitors or guards or somebody there doing the
So-
traffic, and also you got walking traffic from that back parking lot too, right? The parking lot that exists today.
So this back parking lot is really a staff parking lot, so.
Yeah, that's what I should have said, yeah.
Yeah. So there is a sidewalk that the staff will be able to bring up, runs parallel alongside the new driveway that comes in, and they'll be able to come right in the entrance that way. When the buses pull out, I would imagine that you're still going to have a monitor out there to at least stop any cars, just in case someone doesn't understand that the buses have the precedence.
And the overflow for visitors parking, if there's a need, that would just be wherever they could find space, of all the spaces available?
So the visitor, yeah, so the visitor parking up top is really, was put there for two reasons. The first reason is if you do have someone coming to visit and they're picking their student up or their child up for, say, a doctor's appointment or something, they can come in, go right into the school, sign their student out, and then quickly exit out the building. They're not, walking all through the entire campus to get to this point. The second is in the morning, if you do have a student say that they're taking band and they're bringing their cello in and they're getting dropped off, they could drop off that instrument and, bring that student in, and they're still coming into that same main entrance. So that was really the motivation for putting those spots there. Those spots are intended for short-term drop-off. They're not intended for staff members or maybe a parent helper that's coming in for many hours.
I see, thank you.
Yep.
Joanne, you had another
I
question?
have one more question. The classrooms, that will be towards the new band room. Will they have another exit out of the room? So in other words, like our kindergartners, we have two entrances, we have two exits. One, you come in through the hallway, the other one, they can go out to the playground.
The current hallway exit's not going away.
Right, that's what I'm saying, but will they have another one that, because the way the building is angled, there's classrooms on the other side of it, correct?
So on the inside,
Where
If you look, you gotta go back,
Where the
Joanne.
tech- where
If
the
you
tech room
go
is.
back to
there.
slide 6.
Right, for some reason, my iPad just went, it's all
Yeah,
dark.
see that you still have the
So-
stairwell exit out at the
Right.
end of that hallway.
But what I'm thinking is if we're doing this, where the tech lab is and on that side, in the blue,
Yeah,
that's also going to come out to an empty, has a
courtyard?
courtyard, thank you.
Well, some
A
of
courtyard, so can't we have
those,
two
music
entrances?
not the music room, but they are looking at possibly some exterior doors
Correct.
for
that's what-
some of that work. Obviously, all of that's going to be contemplated based on the cost,
Right.
because they
I mean, if
are
we're
the
building
exterior
it,
walls of the
we should
building.
be looking at a way, again, because it comes into a safety issue as far as I'm concerned, that if you have to get out of the building, we
No,
could.
it's not, the doors that we would put there, if we put them there, have nothing to do with a safety matter, it'd be for instructional purposes to be able to get into the courtyard. The
Well,
room's designed without doors
I'm
going
think-
into
right, I'm-
the rooms designed without going into the corridor are designed with proper exiting for fire purposes.
Right, I'm not.
The doors that we would add, which are being considered, would be for instructional purposes, so those in the tech and the innovation lab can get into the courtyard for projects.
That's
So
true.
that's,
I mean, it's a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
every
you know.
exterior door you add adds a huge amount of, between security and making sure they're locked and closed. So that's why we're making them have to have a very specific reason. Because you could add doors to every one of those exterior rooms.
Well-
But that would be a huge expense and a huge security risk.
but yeah,
Okay.
we're looking at that.
Because, and the other thing that you had said was the structure of the building and the structure walls. So will that be adding extra money to moving them around? To changing them?
It's part of the project.
I mean,
So-
I was just
so-
gonna say, is it built into the project price?
so the The discoveries that we had found doing our field work over the summer in terms of structural impacts have been worked through by the design team with the expressed desire to minimize or eliminate unneeded structural work to the buildings. So as you can imagine, some of these structures are, the middle school's 80 years old. So documentation from 80 years ago might not be as thorough as we would like. One way to sort of not kick the hornet's nest, so to speak, is to design around any conflicts or concerns regarding the existing structure, all the while meeting the program needs and providing proper egress through all spaces. So we've minimized structural impact. That's about as concise as I could be.
Yeah, because that school, as far as I know, has been worked on since I've been here. This would be project number, I think, 4. So, okay. Like I said, there's walls been added, taken down, with everything else that's been in
I
there.
would agree with you, yes.
Elevators added. Okay, that was all the questions I had for the middle school. Thank you.
And moving over into the high school, so from the exterior point of view, from an athletics point of view, we're looking at the relocation of the pole vault. There's the turf field replacement and the track resurfacing. We discussed this briefly at the facilities meeting earlier today. This is an ongoing discussion with the district, but as far as the capital project is concerned, these are 3 aspects at the high school, the exterior site work that we continue to develop in anticipation of the state education department documents that are 2.5 weeks out. On the interior, again, we're looking at the main office, the student support center, nurses suite, our art suite. So this is 2D and 3D art, as well as a graphics lab. We have a full STEAM lab, so it's a technology lab. We're talking about renovations to the band room, the music support, providing acoustically treated practice rooms in the band area, theater support and all the costume and set storage areas, as well as the fitness center. The fitness center is being expanded, and then immediately adjacent to the fitness center, we are providing multi-purpose space for all departments. So this is not geared toward solely athletics. This could be if Tom and John want to do a classroom from a technology robotics point of view. If they want to bring in the theater group in there, it's going to be multi-purpose. And then up on the second floor, we have a robotics lab, and we're doing some minor cosmetic work into one of the special ed rooms. But the robotics lab requires a little bit of demolition. We are taking 2 spaces, combining it into one larger space, which will have state-of-the-art design capabilities, both from a power point of view. We've discussed this with the high school staff from a storage and programming. Learned a lot from Tom Fassel as to what the program for a robotics lab is. A little over my head, but it's been eye-opening. And
It's actually worthwhile highlighting a little more of the dialogue that you had, because right now, robotics and engineering classes take place in the back, or really sharing with an earth science room.
Yep.
So this is adding a science room to the science department and having it specifically designed for robotics and engineering. It's really quite a forward-thinking experience, and one of those things we were able to pull together over the last couple of months. So Matt and your team and John and Tom, John DiVenuto and Tom Fassel at the high school, really working very, very hard to create something that does not exist right now. So that you know where it is, upstairs there's a computer lab in the center of the main wing.
Yep.
And right next to the computer lab is a small, narrow special education room. That's going to become one large room where the robotics space will be. And then across the hallway is an unused, really not occupiable because of its design, room that will become occupiable because of some modifications to it, and the special ed room will be relocated across that hallway. So we're really developing something pretty exciting, a bigger room for special education and a true robotics and engineering lab.
So you're saying is you're going to move it across the hall, the special ed room, and it will be bigger than they're in now?
Yes, yeah. More, I mean, it's a narrow, it's a narrow, odd room right now, so.
And one of the modifications that we're making to that space, as it currently sits, there is an deficiency in terms of proximity of egressing to a rescue window. It's a landlocked space, whereas most classrooms have a rescue window. So part of this renovation is to relocate interior doors to give a shorter travel distance to the rescue window, which is located immediately next door classroom. It's the first window in the next room.
Okay, so will you also be doing that on the first floor where the nurse's office is? Because in that back room that they do use, there is no rescue window in there.
That's
and-
going to be a completely redesigned area, so we can.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I want to make sure that there's a rescue window in there because I've been fighting for that for years.
The nurse won't
to
even
put
be
there.
there anymore, because
Right.
the nurse's office gets moved.
But we'll be using it for a classroom.
No. You'll see. Student support services were on the first.
Again, but.
If you look at the drawing
It will
before.
be occupied by people.
But it
It will
meets
be
the
occupied
code.
by somebody.
But it meets the code. It's going to be offices. If you look
know,
at the one before, Joanne, it has,
There's some rooms that won't have windows, yes.
they're not required to.
Again, if we're doing this, we should be looking at the safety feature of making sure everybody can get out.
Wait, let's make sure we're clear on this. There are no safety issues relating to this. There are some wall-locked offices that don't have an exterior wall, so they can't have a window to the outside.
Well, I know, all I know is even where the nurse's office is, the windows are awful high in order to get out of the building. So that's what I'm looking at, because if you do have someone that is a particular size, and God forbid, fire or whatever, you can't get them out of there. So my thing is,
I don't
we
believe
need
there's
to look
any
at that.
changes to the exterior window structure, correct?
Correct.
So again, that's something when we did the project, we didn't really look at the
No,
window.
no, don't, we looked at, as we went through this process, you're giving misleading information, Joanne.
I'm
When
not
we
giving
went through this
misleading, I mean,
project,
I've been fighting this
the-
for years, Frank. I mean,
Well,
the
but
window in the nurse's
unfortunately,
office
you
should
can
be
have a
locked.
personal opinion about something that doesn't mean it's an actual safety issue or concern. Everybody's looked at it. We made sure that we're up to code. We're correcting any code issues. You know, the addition at the current band room could never be where it is now at the middle school, because it doesn't meet the code. So we're getting rid of it. We could have easily, we never got through state ed, you could just build it back in the same place, but you can't anymore. So the committee has taken painstaking time over these months, not only meeting with all the administrators, but the teachers and the people that occupy these spaces to make sure that all the safety concerns, because we've seen the minutes from those meetings. There's nobody that's been left out to have their input come in. And everything we're doing is to make sure we're in compliance with all the codes, because otherwise state ed would never approve it.
Well, again,
Let me help explain
and
it to you a little
and
bit,
I
Frank.
get that,
Let me help
and I
explain it.
understand that, but let's go beyond that, Frank. Again, if something happens, and we'll say right now, today, in the nurse's office, again, and I've been fighting this for years, again, you have a kid that, we'll say like my son, that is mentally challenged. Windows up here. How are you getting him out?
Joanne, let me help you.
So this is what I'm
Joanne,
saying,
can I
when you
help
did the project, it upsets me to see that,
Joanne,
you know,
can
we're
I
not
help you?
looking at that.
Can I help you with something though?
Go ahead.
Because I want you to accept the answer yes, because yes. The nurse's office isn't where the nurse's office is right now. The nurse's office is being completely relocated, let me finish.
And I get
Up
that.
to where the main office is.
Correct.
So that window structure is completely different because it's in a completely different space. The guidance office is going to be from where the guidance office is now, all the way down through and including the existing nurses' suite. So there's going to be a complete redesign of both of those, the main office area, the existing tech room where John DiVenuto is becomes part of the main office and the new nurse's office. And then where guidance is and the existing nurses is all one enormous
be one-
guidance suite.
Okay.
So where it is now, there are absolutely major inadequacies
Correct.
from a functional and purposeful perspective. What we're going to end up with when we're done is completely different than what we have right now.
Okay.
So there are some renderings that you can see, but they're
Some that
addressed,
you can't.
some of the elements that you're speaking to are absolutely addressed, absolutely.
Because the guidance department was the other one that the windows are very high. It's
Well,
very
they're not
small, but
changing.
like you
Those are
said,
going to
you
be
are.
personal offices along that outside wall.
Well, then, I mean, then we need to really look at it and say, how can we get out?
Well, if
Was
you
there
look at,
another
if you
entrance?
look at
'Cause
the
I know in
rendering,
the nurse's
Joanne,
office, there,
Let me speak to that, because
get
this
to the next
gentleman right
slide.
here, that's the designer, can speak to the requirement for exits for classrooms and exits for offices. So maybe you can speak to that.
So from a classroom point of view, in the eyes of the state education department, the egressing and the secondary egress requirements out of a classroom are a lot different than a personal, single occupant office. So as the code reads, if you have spaces that are sized, you know, there are limitation, there are thresholds for offices. If your office is under a particular square footage, you have one means of egress out of that office. So you don't need two doors or a door and a window out of a single occupant office. Classroom's a whole nother matter in the eyes of the state education department. And we're providing, you know, the required egressing, including rescue windows, out of all classrooms.
that I do know. Okay.
and if we get to the next slide you were going to, because we finished the second floor, you'll see that there's the new student service center, which is where guidance is. There's not even doors during the day when they're open. It's a big open area to the hallway. So there's lots of egress
To get out.
for in the common area.
Okay.
Hey, can we go back one slide just for a second? Mike, when you were talking about the robotics lab and what was moving around, you said that we're combining a couple of existing spaces, earth science and what was the engineering lab? and
Upstairs is a
robotics?
computer lab, and right next to it's a narrow special ed room. Those are going to combine to become the robotics lab.
My question was, do we lose any space from in the science department? Like,
No.
no,
No, you
so the
gain.
earth science is,
Technically, we're gaining a room by
gaining.
doing this.
so robotics lab will stand by itself and we still have an earth science place that is currently there today, that's the same?
Correct.
Okay, I
The
don't,
room right next to robotics to the right, the first green room,
That's
is
it.
a foreign language, world languages room. And then you start science.
right, okay. That's
So
where Ms.
there's
Fassel
just
is
a,
right
you
now,
know, A little
okay.
bit of an unnatural connection there, but being as efficient as we can with dollars and cents, this is the right way to go about it.
And the lab is a combined, like lab classroom space, right, in a sense?
What do you mean?
Well, a lab, is it only a lab, or is it?
Right now, it's a computer lab. The computer lab will be eliminated.
No, I mean in the new space.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it says robotics lab, but
Okay,
it's
that's what I
going to be
thought.
Tom Fassel's classroom for robotics and
And
engineering.
it's gonna be a flexible footprint, like many of the new renovated spaces.
So one of the aspects that Mr. Brooks had reiterated repeatedly during our design sessions would be, in the future, if the robotics lab were to change to some other program, what we did not want to do is provide fixed furniture that sort of anchors you into one layout for one department. So that space, for all intents and purposes, will have lockable cabinetry along the perimeter. We're providing enough power receptacles for anything they could think of, and all the furnishings in there will be movable. So from a facilities point of view, during the summer when it needs to be cleaned, other than the cabinets that are mounted on the wall, the rest, it's just a big open room.
So you spoke to, a little memory jog for me too, thank you, Matt. Matt said receptacles, and a design element that I know the students will appreciate, but certainly anybody that's ever had to charge a device, one of the elements that will be part of the bid specifications is any time in any of this project there's an outlet put in, it'll have the 2 regular outlets plus USB plugs in
Good.
it. So there'll be a lot of ability to charge if you don't have a cube or if you do have a cube. There's going to be plenty of ability to charge all around in these new spaces that have been built.
I have to tell you,
Chromebooks.
those plugs are like the best
Fortunately,
things.
Chromebooks right now-
As old as my house is, I have them, and I have to tell you, I love them because my biggest problem is I always walk out of the house without the cube to plug in, and nobody has them, and I'm like,
And one of the first comments that we received during our design coordination sessions was, initially you would think that something like that is geared toward the students, but a lot of the staff, you know, they're on the, you know, if you're stuck in meetings all day and you're, you know, sort of looking down at your phone all day, trying to keep up with the email, you know, tsunami that everybody deals with, they need to charge their devices as well too.
Right,
And it
and-
shouldn't be, I'm in the meeting room down the hall and my phone is way back here and I hope I don't forget it before I get halfway home.
plus you have families and you have teachers that have kids, and there's emergencies that do pop up, and you do have to keep your phone on. I mean, it just, you know, but like I said, it's good for, even for the kids that don't charge their Chromebooks, that they can plug them in and their Chromebooks can get charged. So that is nice. I have to honestly say, I love that idea because it's just something positive for not only the adults, it's also very positive for our students in the right direction,
Thank you.
so.
So again, the rendering for the security vestibule at the high school, right now, the vestibule itself is rather shallow in depth. You come through the exterior doors. The second set is about 6 feet in. Again, once you're through that second set of doors, it's pretty much all wall. It's mural, very nice murals, but you don't have that connection from the main office to
Right.
whoever's standing in the lobby of your building. As part of this project, the idea is to open up that connection, a lot of visibility, and visitors would be buzzed through the main office. There would be sort of the transaction counter, and then you would work your way through the single door that you see on the right-hand side of that image to the left. And therefore, there's a control of visitors, vendors, whoever it is, and it would be a significant upgrade from the lack of visibility that you have right now. Again, you'd still have the greeter window like you have now. It'd be a little larger, but the control of visitors would be increased significantly. On the right-hand side, from the student services, as was mentioned earlier, the idea in a lot of these corridors is to open up the corridor so you can see people and you don't walk past a particular door wondering, did I just walk past the library? I can't tell because it's just a door and a wall. If there's a lot of glass, we have what we're looking for are overhead fire shutters, those who could remain open during business hours or during a school day. There's a lot of glass, there's a lot of openings. We want to welcome students in. As you can see in the rendering, we're looking at a series of counselor offices as well as an area for students to sit at bistro height seating, plug in their Chromebook, do their research for colleges, whatever they do, and it'd be a more inviting space.
Really what this does too with the guidance piece, it truly does allow us to bring all services into a student services suite. So psychologists, social workers, guidance counselors, there'll be an office for each plus some extra, and there's a conference room in the guidance office now. Plus the new design adds a conference room over near the main office too. So meeting spaces are tough. When we get together for meetings, we're in that little cube outside the library, or inside the library.
Inside the library.
We won't have that problem in this new design. There's going to be a meeting space in the main office area and in the guidance office. Plus adequate-sized offices for the guidance office guidance counselors to meet with families.
And you're also taking, and we're gonna have consistency so that the students coming, they're gonna learn about this centralized student services at the middle school and come to a similar model at the high school. So all trying to build on that student experience as they move through.
Structure.
From the art suite, as I mentioned earlier, meeting with the art department, 2D and 3D art, a lot of graphic and computer related, a lot of tactile artwork. So the 2D and 3D art studios are immediately adjacent to one another. There's a space for their kiln, there's space for storage, and then immediately next to the art suite is a graphics lab, which would be utilized by both departments. Again, a lot of glazing, a lot of visual connection between those three spaces. That is our goal, and that's what was sought by the administration during our coordination sessions. And then lastly, the fitness center, having a focus on not only phys ed, but also strength and conditioning for our athletics department. Again, the corridor is going to be opened up. There will be a lot of glazing, so you'll know the fitness room is right there as you walk by. There's the connection. And then dealing with an inventory of existing and new equipment is a conversation that is ongoing with the district. Providing a nice, welcome, well-lit, well-ventilated space is what we're pushing for.
So my questions for the fitness center is, I see treadmills, I see weights, I see ellipticals. So one, is that all included into the project?
The drawing there really is just a rendering. That's actually not the real equipment that's going to be in there. The final design is under process right now. It's going to be a mix of strength training, which is primarily what it is now, cardio and agility, and speak to it today, how the conversation went.
So
It's a 360 view of a fitness center. So really looking at enhancing what we do in our physical education classes now, creating another site that can be used for Fitness for Life. Really,
Right,
that's what it comes down
what
to.
I kind of want to know, because the other thing is keeping this all clean. And the same thing, I mean, with all the glass that we're putting up, who's cleaning it all?
Our people.
Well, like I said,
Yep.
it's a lot of work, especially, with the fitness center. That equipment does need to be cleaned because of people sweat.
Yep.
So will it be cleaned after each class? Those are questions that, we need to think about too, when we're putting
Sure.
equipment in, and what kind of equipment we're putting in.
Yep. Yes.
Also for the field, the track, you said you were moving a couple of things around. So my question is the pit, the jump pit and the water pit, or what they actually call it, that will be still staying where it is?
So,
That's one
like
of
the,
my
st-
notes,
like
but-
the steeplechase and the
Yes.
long jump pits are remaining where they are. Our team is looking at alternate pit covers, because one of the comments that we fielded from the administration was the unwieldiness of the pit cover pieces. They take 4 to 6 people to lift. And there's a wind uplift, like from a wind uplift point of view, you want it to be hard to remove, but not borderline impossible.
And one of them is also damaged, or was damaged.
And we heard all about that as well too.
Yep. All right, and will there be a place like with the kids, with all the mats that are outside, there be an easier place to store them or keep them better covered, or, is there some kind of way that you guys do that, or is
No
it just
changes
the
to
way?
the storage outside.
Okay, so, yeah, and the track, how long would the track be guaranteed for?
Depending on the manufacturer we go with, I don't think George, from a just a general warranty point of view.
That was a question, we didn't speak to
We didn't
the
talk to
number.
the numbers yet.
Because my thing is, we
But it's-
had put the track that's
Yeah,
in
we'll have
there
to
now.
wait for,
Once
as
we
the
get the
bid comes in,
specs
we know
on
who the
it.
manufacturers are. It'll tell you
Because
that.
that's one of the concerns, is because it kind of like pitted a
Well, one
little
of the-
quicker than we expected it to.
One of the, a piece of the dialogue today was about the specific track surface and also the specific turf surface, but we're getting more information from the designers in the coming weeks, so we'll know the answer to that very
All right,
soon, so.
good. And my other question is, because at the high school, I know they're redoing the locker rooms.
No,
We're not doing the locker
No.
rooms.
Middle school,
middle school.
Okay, all
not the high school.
right. So
Si-
all four locker rooms will stay where they are.
Yes.
We're not
Okay.
touching the locker room.
I have a question since we're on the field, a little bit related to what Joanne said. So, I mean, it wasn't that long ago that that whole field, the track and the turf field was installed. I think it was 2006 timeframe. And we've heard from Larry several times how the turf has been stretched past its really usable space, and that's, I think, expected. But I'm a little surprised that the track needs resurfacing already. But my bigger question is, these things are being installed in schools all over now, and the sale, when it was first put into any capital bond, is it's a savings in the long run, because you don't have to maintain cutting the grass and maintaining level and safety and so on, right? But when you start looking at, if this is a 15-year cycle, or whatever the number is, and having to resurface these things, and not just in Marlboro, but is it really the better financial, not that you're going to rip all this out now, but just curious, is this really a better way, financially at least, as an alternative to what we used to be there? This might tie to whatever the manufacturers are offering now.
But John, that's not something we've asked them or they've looked at.
Okay.
They're just a designer that's
Oh, all right.
working on the project that we gave them. So that's not an area, they're not, you know,
But, well, any professional experience that you can offer for the question there? It's just curious to me. I mean, if we have to do this every 15 years, as an example,
Well,
we
I
better start saving now.
we do. And that's, I
we
mean,
need-
we knew when we put it in that it would need to be replaced, and we're actually getting more years than we thought out of it from when we did it. I would say, of your capital programs you're doing, are you putting in more turf or redoing grass?
From my experience, it's turf.
It's the track that surprises me.
Well, the track,
Not so much.
the track,
But but you gotta remember, we're not replacing everything, we're just the surface. Because underneath that surface is a whole nother
Okay.
system. So you're just
Maybe I didn't
replacing the
understand that.
surface.
So it's like a couple inches of the rubbery stuff? Oh, all right.
It's the same thing with
starts
the
to
turf,
split.
you're
I
not
don't notice it when I
replacing,
see it, but-
you're not
Yeah, I
replacing
mean-
all the drainage and everything.
Okay.
You're replacing
I got you.
the underlayment and the carpeting.
Okay. That's kind of what I was looking for.
We are also taking the opportunity,
Well,
when all these surfaces are up, to do some burying of an underground conduit so that we can get some wiring inside the track area. Right now you can't, so electric, things like that. But also getting some wiring out to the scoreboard and the two light poles so we can get video and any other future services out towards softball and baseball too.
Jumbotron?
Well, I don't know about that. No, we could do that now with the existing scoreboard, but there's dollars. But, no, right now, we basically have information darkness once you step outside the building. And thinking to the future, we don't want to tear this up just to throw in some fiber. So Mike's burying fiber out to, poles out there so that we can get whatever future need there is.
so,
Before we move on to the elementary school, Susan, do you have a question about the high school?
I think it's just overall, I'm gonna wait till the end.
Okay. So, go ahead.
And then from the elementary school, we are resurfacing their 3 exterior playscapes, as well as addressing the existing exterior wood soffitting around the 1965 portion of the school. We have a lot of rot. We have some infestation. We are handling all of the exterior soffitting in a more facilities-friendly point of view. Over time, wood tends to rot. It's a maintenance issue. It looks nice when it's first installed, but We saw firsthand last Wednesday the extensive deterioration of some of the exterior softening, namely toward the south end of the 1965 wing,
Wait, which one?
and which is
South
back,
end.
back in this area back here.
Where the new gym is.
No, that's the old building. New gym's the upper.
On the inside, we have our new security vestibule, which is going to be enlarged slightly with direct access into the main office, which has a couple of partitions that are moving around within the main office. But from a planning layout point of view, very minimal impact of the main office. And one of the other items was the lack of acoustics in the existing music band room toward the rear of the building by the gymnasium. Right now, with the door open, it can be a little disrupting to adjacent classrooms. So we're acoustically treating the surfaces in that room, as well as acoustically treating the door. So the new entry vestibule in concept is going to be very similar to that of the middle school and the high school. A lot of glazing properly treated, and then there will be a greeter window similar to the other schools, with the emphasis having all visitors being buzzed through the main office and sort of a traffic control in that manner, rather than having greeters stationed in vestibules and stairwells at the middle school. We're trying to concentrate traffic from a security point of view a lot better than what currently exists. From a general project timeline point of view, the design process is wrapping up. As you can see, we are within our last couple of weeks of documentation before our drawings and specifications go to the State Education Department. We're giving them an early Christmas gift on the 23rd of this month. I'm sure they'll be thrilled. And we're going through expedited review, which is roughly 4 to 5 weeks of review, which in the meantime, we will be continuing our efforts with David and his team at Jacobs in wrapping up the biddable documents, and hopefully when we get SED's comments back February-ish, that's a quick turnaround, and we're right on the precipice of wrapping up our bidding and right on the threshold of awarding this work, so that come May, or the day 5 minutes after graduation, we are starting the construction process. So we have the first summer, the summer of 2020, 3-month block of time. Then school reconvenes. David and his team will be tackling the next 9 months via second shift work. And then we have the summer of 2021, wrapping up sort of the larger demolition projects within this project, so that come the commencement of school in 2021, September-ish, the project is completing, and it's at that point it's more of a paperwork, but we plan to be out when the kids come back in September.
So I have a question about the elementary school, the playgrounds. You said that you're going to redo the bottoms with the, I guess, the rubber matting. Is that correct? Because
Yes.
I know I go to the town of Newburgh Park a lot, and they do have it, and it is nice. So the playground equipment that is there will be going around it, or will you be taking it out to put it in?
I would have to double check with Jeff and George as to whether or not, from a installation point of view, whether or not the rubberized surfacing can be installed to meet the manufacturer's requirements without sort of removing and replacing. If it can be left in place and you're dealing with sort of sort of the levelness of grade, and the material can go down without the effort of removing, we would probably go that route.
Because I have to be honest, like I said, I go up to the playground in town of Newburgh. I take some of the kids up there, and it really is nice, and it's safe, and the kids have a good time. My other question is, at the middle school playground, will we be doing the same thing there?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Susan?
My question is really for Mike, so I don't want to,
Okay.
so I'll defer to anyone else that,
I just have one question. In the elementary school, you have two baseball, softball fields that are actively maintained and used, and you have two that used to be, but are no longer. They're overgrown and whatnot. In any of the committee meetings, has there been any discussion about a need to maybe turn them back into active fields? I mean, at this point, I would think the difference in adding that cost in, if we could save it somewhere else, wouldn't be that much, but only if there's a need, or to do any other reconfiguration of those fields, you know, for soccer, lacrosse.
John, I know in any of the stuff that we've talked about, nothing, because that's not, if there is a need, it's not from the school's perspective. There may be some community, they're always looking for more fields, but from our actual operations from school functions, we're not looking, nobody said anything in any of those meetings about additional fields.
I'm just curious, this is before my time in Marlboro, but at one point, there was 4 fields, so I would
Yeah, and they
assume
still
it's
use
actively
them
used, but
during
not as,
certain times of year that you've seen people use them, but now that they have the fields at the park,
so even in the past, it was used more by the community than the school?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. John would
I'm
know
just
better-
curious.
John would know better than anybody.
I was gonna say they use them.
Okay, just curious.
One question about the band rooms. What are they gonna put on the floors? Are they putting rug or rubber, or what are they doing with the 2 band room floors?
So from a facilities point of view, the request has been a resilient hard surface. We have also reached out to our acoustic consultant, who also confirmed that from an acoustics point of view, throwing carpet in, if anything, is negligible. It's, when you're performing with instruments and voices, the floor plane is the least important in the whole room.
Well, it's also rough too, we can put carpet in, and the people playing the instruments when they're avoiding.
So whether it be the elementary school music room, the middle school auditorium, which is choral, band, and then in the high school, in the existing band room, the intent is to keep a hard surface, whether it be VCT or resilient, in all those spaces.
Okay, thank you.
And I think Larry would appreciate that.
Anybody else have any questions for the architects team? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will see you at our next facilities meeting. Now you have a question for Mike?
I do. So as we went over this, we saw quite a few areas that have,
I mean, it's on.
I guess, lack of better terms, like the space collaboration, right? So what, I think, you know, with that, I mean, obviously with this type of massive project, you're going to have a huge amount of natural culture change. But in those areas where you have this space collaboration, making up a new term, I don't even know if it makes sense.
I understand what you're saying when you say it. So.
Like, for example, in the high school guidance office with that high, you know, I mean, I foresee it. It seems like a really nice space, but, you know, and, you know, just the natural human being process, you know, you become possessive of new spaces. And so my question is, at what point I mean, I know where we are, but I think it's important that we consider bringing staff into this at, you know, an earlier than later phase, so they can, you know, fully understand what the use of the space is really designed for in order for us to, you know, to maximize it in the way that it needs to be.
And I have to give Mike and the whole team from CSR credit with that. and I'm sure I've heard it personally from teachers where you run into different things. I'm sure the principals can vouch too. This is probably the most collaboration and input that's ever happened on a capital project. Because they've all been involved in just that. How's it gonna work? What do they need to make it work with that, for that collaboration? So I really think there's been buy-in across the buildings about all of these changes that are going on. Obviously, everybody knows until the final bids come in, you know, there may be things that have to get cut, and
Sure.
those will be the hard decisions. But nobody's thoughts or concerns or really how to make it better weren't taken into account at a lot of detail. So I really, I gotta give you a lot of credit, because that's a big part of just that, the
Yeah,
buy-in.
yeah.
Is everybody on board, not, oh, here's what you got and you're stuck with it,
Yeah.
type thing.
There's another piece to it also. Thank you to the team of architects who've done a wonderful job with it, and certainly our administrators and staff. But I think one of the more important elements that Robin is chomping at the bit for is once these spaces are constructed, truly making the programs within them become something more than they are now. So I think that's the value add to the words that you spoke and Frank just enhanced, is our assistant superintendent for instruction is saying, can we make it September of 2020 that it's done? Can you make that happen, construction management? I know. Because making the program become something more than it is now is what Robin is going to be solely focused on when this space
Yeah.
becomes a reality. So you're right.
But also what I'm saying too, and, you know, maybe that's what you're meaning, you know, we have the plans, they've been, you know, very well thought out, that collaboration has happened, but I'm saying, you know, to get that buy-in kind of every step of the way, so once you're actually physically in that space, you're already really understanding what that use is for.
I am so glad you said it, and our three principals are here, and Robin is here, hearing the repeated words of our leadership team, including this Board of Education, and the expectation that we have. So
Okay.
you are spot on, right where we are.
Good.
So, staff members that are there, great. Staff members that are not there, they'll get there.
Oh, yeah.
So,
John, looked like you had another question.
I think you answered it, but I originally thought your question was less about collaboration now as opposed to after we start filling the space, which I think where Mike just addressed, is the constant, I guess you can call it continual improvement, where is it being used as designed? Can that be maybe changed or improved upon based on what it really, the interaction really becomes? I thought that's where your question was,
Yeah.
so I was gonna interject, but it looks like Mike took you there anyway.
Do you want to add another question?
I do, because I see with all the glass going on, I also don't see a lot of privacy. So when you have a parent meeting, is there another room where the parent will go where it will be private, or CSE meetings? Or are you going to put it in the center where it's in the middle and everybody's seeing you having a meeting
Yeah,
there?
the conference rooms are walled conference rooms with security glass and doors that have the ability to see into them, certainly, but it's not a fully open glass.
Again, I mean-
Even the guidance offices are not fully glassed open walls.
No, but you can
see
close, you can close the
picture.
door when you're having
Yeah.
a meeting, and no problem, but I mean, but when you're having a CSE meeting, it's
Well-
about a child in the school, and everybody shouldn't be looking in, walking past the hallway saying,
Yeah,
ooh,
but we have,
that's
do have
special ed
blind,
kid.
there are
Ooh, that's
some
a
of the
special
rooms
ed
that are
kid."
scheduled to have blinds, and there are conference rooms, many
So,
more now
I
than they
kind of
have.
find that, or if there's a parent that's in trouble, and they need some other teachers in the room, again, there should be a place where it could be private.
We have plenty of private spaces.
And, okay, well, that's my concern, is to make sure that when we're doing CSE meetings, or 504 meetings, or just parent conference, that
We have
there's
no
a private
conference rooms
spot
right now,
for them.
remember that. We have conference rooms now, so there'll be appropriate spaces for meetings.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Oh, you,
I just wanted to add to your point. So one of the comments that we heard from the student support staff for both the middle school and the high school was just that. So if,
Thank you.
if we have counselors and we have a psychologist's office, so all of the offices have been sized such that there's the individual's work desk, there's a separate breakout table that seats 3 to 4, and all of the partitions between all of those spaces are getting the highest level of acoustic treatment that we are specifying on the project, so that normal decibel level for speech is muffled, so you don't have to be, so you won't worry about whether or not your conversation is heard out in the common area or to the next counselor's office.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, especially at a high school level, kids are going for counseling. It's a private thing, and it should be held privately, and so nobody should be interfering or seeing and say, ooh, look where you're going,
Yeah, well,
ooh, look what's going on.
But
And it's
Joanne,
not private.
he's addressed those.
I know, but that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
It needs to be addressed, and
Well,
I
it
just
is,
want to
and
make
it's in,
sure that
it's
we.
in, it is, and it's in the plan.
Okay, give me a minute, Frank. So that is one of the biggest concerns, because it's about the students and their families. So I do appreciate that you took that into consideration. Thank you.
We'll move on to public comment on the agenda items. Is there any public comment on the agenda items? There's no public here, other than the students at least came.
I'm done with this.
Okay, we'll move on to consent agenda. Resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approves the contracts, agreements, and reports as presented. Personnel actions, tax correction, Board of Ed meeting minutes of 11/7, donations, CSC, CPSC recommendations, equipment and book disposition. Can I have a motion? Susan, second. James, any discussion?
On the personnel, unfortunately, well, I have two things going on. One is with personnel, again,
Joanne,
create the-
I have to say this to everybody. Please, even though your mics are on, if you don't pull them up, it's not getting amplified.
Okay,
These
thank you.
mics you got to be close to.
The question is on the personnel agenda, creating the position. School business manager,
Yes.
is that the new position that you're creating for the business office?
Correct.
I can't support that. That's fine. My other question is, I noticed the disposal of equipment is on here. Cell phones. What are we doing with them?
Mike,
Some of them are brand new, some of them are still in good condition.
All right.
I
Mike,
mean.
Can you speak to the disposition? Brent?
And why do we have so many of them?
Well, that's a fantastic question
Because
of
we were
historic.
supposed to have radios.
Yeah, but
That's a fantastic question of historical nature. We're finally getting to the point where we can dispose of the cell phones that we have discontinued and shut off because we contracted with the new radio system. So we had all of these phones activated. They are now no longer activated and now are ready for disposal.
Yeah, my understanding is this is the first time we're doing a cell phone disposition. We've been housing all those former cell phones, and this is the first time we're actually doing a cell phone disposition.
So will they be sold? Because some of them are brand new.
Well,
If
where's
we're throwing
it-
them, if we're throwing
where
them
do you
out,
see, where do you see anything that
That's
says
just
it's brand new?
That's just condition.
the conditions,
flip
it says
phones
new.
in there.
Right.
Right.
They're fine.
It says new, old, good.
Yeah, that's the condition the phone is in, but you have to look at the
There's a
model.
couple that are broken.
It's an iPhone 5. I mean, we're
Okay.
at,
Yeah.
Mine still, my iPhone 4 still works.
For
It
the
doesn't
record,
mean
if
Well-
you update that, it will no longer work. If you
Folks,
run an
can I-
update,
can I take a
it's
call?
out.
That's what disposition's for.
The plan, the plan was to treat this similar to our technology equipment, which we make sure that that is recycled properly and that all the data is certified and wiped off of there. So,
Anything that we can sell, we will sell,
Okay.
but if
So-
it can't be sold, it does get disposed of.
Well, right, sometimes I'm thinking if they still work, we have women's shelters that do look for things like that maybe if we can't sell them, that maybe we can donate them to people in need.
Not a bad idea if you could get me a
laugh
couple of...
lines.
if
I
you
mean,
get me
all you
some-
have to do is call the Newburgh Women's Shelter.
Not a bad idea if you could get us some of those addresses of those that would take those donations. We absolutely would donate those, but, yes.
So just, I always had the same question about how many. So in the past, instead of radios, people used cell phones and we supplied them?
We
as-
had somewhere in the
Yeah?
neighborhood of
Wow.
40 to 60 cell phones active on our system.
Yeah, but that's something we've been working over,
Oh, 72. Mike has the number.
over a year, we've been working on those reductions.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, I
Now
just
we're down
never
to a very
realized that.
small number that Mike can,
Well, that's been done. I mean, we've reduced in vast quantity, but the new radio system was key to that. So these guys can communicate building to building and within the building.
So while it looks like there's a lot of equipment that is potentially usable by some, we'll certainly donate it or sell it. This list represents a tremendous cost savings because we're no longer paying the monthly bill on every single one of these phones.
Somebody can call a museum because there's Blackberries on it. I want to see who's got a Blackberry.
Keep them to the Innovation Center. They'll find something to do.
They may end up using some of this stuff.
Yeah.
but we have to-
We do give them recycled pieces, and they do some great
They have a
projects.
couple of my VCRs and old PCs.
Okay, can we get back on point, gang? Any other questions on a consent item? Okay, John Marrow,
Yes.
John Cantone,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Susan,
What are we voting on?
the consent item, the consent agenda.
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Joanne,
No.
and myself, yes. Motion carried 6-0. 6-1, excuse me. Any old business? Any new business? Any other items? Recognition of district residents. Motion to adjourn. Karen, second. Joanne, all in favor? Any opposed? We will see everybody in 2 weeks. Thank you, everybody. Oh, and in between, not that there's a lot of people here, next weekend, the play at the middle school,